Playing for keeps. Sony's gamble to capture hearts and homes. The new PlayStation 4 launches today. And profits tumble at the world's biggest miner, BHP Billiton. We find out why. Hello and welcome. You with World Business Report. I'm Sally Bundock. Also in the programme, we focus on the plight of the young and unemployed in Italy in the lead up to this weekend's elections. So Sony's launching what it hopes will be the market leader amongst video games consoles today. It's a $9 billion global market, and Sony's PlayStation 3 is currently trailing behind Microsoft's Xbox. Console makers as a whole are losing out because of the popularity of gaming on mobile devices. So how can the new style PlayStation recapture enthusiasm for the good old-fashioned games console? In a moment, I'll be speaking to technology expert Chris Green. But first, this report from Jeremy Howell.
For a year now, Sony's PlayStation 3 has been losing the sales race to Microsoft's Xbox. So it's trying to regain the lead with a new model of console which could go on sale as early as next Christmas. The gaming community has been rife with rumours about it, but all their excitement masks the fact that Sony, Microsoft and Nintendo are fighting over a diminishing market. Global sales of games consoles fell last year by 1/5, so did global sales of video games. More and more people now choose to play on smartphones and tablet computers, which can be taken anywhere. And they're favouring the free, simple-to-play games produced for mobiles rather than the complex, pricey ones produced for consoles. Sony may try to counter this trend with new technology which allows users to transfer the game they're playing on their console to mobile devices. It must do something to recapture the imagination of gamers. Its PS Vita console, launched last Christmas, has had poor sales, and the Sony Group made a net loss last quarter of $128 million. Jeremy Howell, BBC News.
Well, Chris Green is an independent technology analyst. Chris, thanks for coming in. So we have to wait till much later today to find out what it's all about and the cost and all that kind of thing, the price, should I say. But what are you expecting?
Well, I mean, there's a few things that we all need to know. There'll be faster processing power, there'll be better graphics, there'll be a new array of games, probably new controller technologies as well. These are all givens that we can expect from the new product. In terms of the things that will take it beyond that, potentially 3D gaming, we also think there'll be a lot of focus on streaming content, both games, movies and TV shows.
To say for Sony this is make or break, is that an exaggeration or is that where we're at?
I think given Sony's overall business issues at the moment, it really is a make or break thing. The PlayStation is a massive cash cow for the company. It's one of their highest margin products as well. So the PS4 will be a huge product for it. In particular, it will be a huge contributor to the overall business plan to rehabilitate Sony's balance sheet.
So compared to Microsoft's Xbox, to the Nintendo Wii U, where do you think this will place Sony? Because that's the key competitors. And then, of course, it has to compete with the likes of Apple and Samsung with those mobile devices.
Well, it's a real challenging market. I mean, and Sony sort of effectively coming to the market second after Nintendo's somewhat lackluster launch with the Wii U. They've got a lot to try and do. But the big problem that they have is that we don't know yet what Microsoft's going to do with its next generation console. The fact that Microsoft will be announcing after Sony means it's got an opportunity to perhaps factor in some last minute changes to react to whatever Sony launches. But also all of the console manufacturers have really got to try and get on board and try and tackle this challenge from mobile gaming. So that's tablets and smartphones particularly are really taking a lump out of traditional console gaming.
Very briefly, to what extent is there evidence to show that we do use our gaming devices for lots of other things in the home? That's the idea that Sony wants us to go for, isn't it?
Well, we're already seeing it. I mean, Sony's existing PlayStation 3 product is already used quite extensively as a Blu-ray movie player, as well as being used for streaming content. We're seeing revenues from streaming services are going up and up, as are demand for services from third-party content providers.
All right, Chris. Well, thanks for your thoughts on the PlayStation 4 coming out later today. Let's now move on, though, because we've got to take you to Italy next, where Italians will be, of course, taking a decision on who will be their next leader in 4 days' time. And one of the biggest issues facing the country is the growing number of people out of work. No surprise then that all candidates have made this central to their campaigns. Many politicians have been calling for the protection of existing state jobs and employment rights, but finding work for the rising number of young job seekers is proving more difficult. From Bologna in northern Italy, our Europe business correspondent Nigel Cassidy has been meeting some of those affected.
3 months into her job search, 31-year-old Antonia Caserta isn't giving up hope. She has a master's and US experience, but the region's mainly family companies in her field of food and drink aren't selling enough to expand.
I think the young people are kind of upset with the politicians at the moment. I think they kind of see them and the government as the reason why there aren't a lot of jobs for the young people. The politicians and the government invest a lot in the older generations of Italy and kind of tend to forget about the young people, you know, the ones in their 20s and their 30s, really the generation that's gonna make Italy grow.
There are success stories. This recruitment organisation says there could be more if the labour market was freer and companies could harness the ability of more flexible, younger knowledge workers.
Now, this new company in Bologna really is a kind of poster child for the short technocratic government of Mario Monti, who got rid of some of the notorious restrictions for start-ups. The concern here is that the reforms under the new government may not be as speedy.
The co-founder of this business says Italy must invest in its infrastructure to reach new markets.
In comparison with other countries, consider that in Italy we have regions that have a connectivity of the 90s, and this is not good in business, especially because we want to change our way of thinking at the business. We must think at the market globally.
But meanwhile, what's fast becoming a lost generation of talented workers are set to leave Italy if the country can't turn the corner under its new leadership. Nigel Cassidy, BBC News, Bologna.
Now, one of the world's biggest miners, BHP Billiton's reported a sharp slide in profits. For more on that, let's go to our Asia Business Hub in Singapore and speak to Sharonjit Lail. She was there, and I'm sure she can hear me. There you go, Sharon. Nice to see you. Fill us in on what BHP has said today.
That's right, Sally. Well, a sharp but expected drop in profits, I should say, for BHP Billiton. They said their net profit for their first half fell some 58% to $4.2 billion due to weaker metals prices. They made almost $10 billion last year at the same time. The firm also said that its chief executive, Marius Kloppers, would retire in May. He was appointed chief executive just before the financial crisis. He'll be replaced by Andrew Mackenzie, who's currently the head of the company's base metals business. Now, just last August, in fact, Mr. Kloppers said he'd forego his bonus for 2012. That's after the company had to announce write-downs in its shale gas and nickel assets business, and that was worth about $3 billion. Now, BHP basically has said the appointment of the new chief executive doesn't signal any change in strategy for the world's biggest miner, and analysts are saying that the change of CEO shouldn't be compared to what rival Rio Tinto did, which was to sack its former CEO Tom Albanese just last month for some bad deals in aluminium and coal. Now, I should say as well that Australian listed shares of BHP, though, have been trading lower on all of this news.
All right, Sharon, thanks very much indeed. So BHP Billiton very much in the news today. Let's have a look at what's going on in the financial markets. The Nikkei up actually by 0.6% today. A very interesting story out of Japan, which is good and bad news, I have to say. Japan's trade deficit swelled to a record $17.4 billion. That's mainly on the higher energy imports that it's having to bring in as its nuclear reactors continue to stand idle following the Fukushima disaster. But also the weaker yen, the impact that's having is it means the cost of importing energy is going up as the currency weakens. But of course, it is a benefit for Japanese exporters. Incidentally, Sony shares are up today, over 1%. That's mainly on a investment house upgrading them, so their shares doing well. That's all from me for the time being. I'll see you soon for a look at the papers.